This is Mario Bros. For the Atari 2600 video computer system, a 1983 release courtesy of Atari. Mario Bros. Has also graced the Atari 5200, the Atari 7800, and the various home computer formats of the time as well, such as the Commodore 64 and the Apple II and whatnot, and this and that, and nobody cares. But this is it. Mario Bros., the original Mario Bros. On primitive Atari hardware, and it's actually pretty good. Not arcade perfect, obviously, but still a very functional, very playable, very enjoyable conversion of the classic arcade game. The original Mario Bros., for those who have never played it, is a much more simpler affair compared to its super variant that relaunched the video game industry. Players control Mario or Luigi in two-player games, and are charged with clearing the single solitary screen of enemies who come in the form of the standard shell creepers, crabs, and fighter flies. You do this by punching the platform beneath them, which knocks them over, from which point you have to kick them off the field in order to eliminate them. However, if you don't do this quickly, they'll recover and continue onwards, only more quicker than before. The last enemy remaining will get a boost of speed to make it harder for you to knock over, but eventually you will succeed and move on to the next wave. In addition to these critters, there are fireballs that will speed across sections of level, as well as icicles later in the game that will move about and freeze platforms if left to their own devices. Every couple waves you'll get a bonus round where you have a limited amount of time to collect all the coins on screen. Getting all the coins in time shouldn't be too much of a problem here, so this should feel like easy points. Every 20,000 points scored nets you an extra life. The game can be played with two players simultaneously, with player 1 controlling Mario and player 2 controlling Luigi. There's a POW block that you could punch 3 times to knock over grounded enemies, so all the important bits work, and they work rather well. In fact, the 2600 version of Mario Bros. Actually manages to maintain the core gameplay elements to a point where it almost plays like the arcade game. Now, is it perfect? No, of course not. There's no bending platforms when you punch them, the fireballs travel in straight lines as opposed to their traditional wave formation, fighter flies do quick hops as opposed to long floaty ones. There's another couple differences here and there, but for the most part, the core tenets of the game and how it plays works pretty damn well. Controls, for the most part, work well enough. You can run, you can jump, basic stuff really. Sometimes the jumping feels awkward and it takes a bit of getting used to before you're able to hop platforms like a pro, but it's not completely detrimental to the overall experience, and it's entirely functional. There is an odd quirk in this version where if you jump straight up without holding the stick, you'll actually land a slight step forward instead of straight down. In theory, jumping straight up multiple times will mean some forward motion and eventually falling off the platform you're on. It's not a deal breaker because there are very few instances where you would jump straight up short of bopping a foe from below, but it can be a mild annoyance that could lead to somewhat fatal results if you're not careful. Aside from that, control works fine, no real issues otherwise. As expected, Mario Bros. Boasts a rather simplified appearance on the 2600, but otherwise manages a fair approximation of the arcade board. Naturally, Mario is the most easily recognizable figure, with multiple colors, while the minor enemies are represented as simple single-color characters. One thing to note is that the enemy never changes color. Typically, when an enemy recovers from a blow, or when there's one last enemy remaining to kill off, they'll speed up and change color. That's not the case here, so it makes things a little, but not too interesting. Sound-wise, it's about as well as you'd expect any Atari video game to sound, and in this case, it's not too bad. There's one jingle that plays like a jingle from the arcade game for whatever that's worth, but other than that, it sounds fine. Overall, Mario Bros. On Atari 2600 is a surprisingly faithful yet simplified conversion of the arcade classic that plays like the game it's trying to port, which is a somewhat impressive feat in and of itself. Usually an arcade title ported to Atari meant some concessions to make the game work on such limited hardware, but Mario Bros. Pulls this off quite admirably and is a fun variation boot. If you're looking for arcade accuracy, then the wide variety of Nintendo releases will probably serve you much better, but as an addition to your Atari library or just a fun little take of the arcade game, Mario Bros. On Atari 2600 is worth checking out if you could find a copy for relatively cheap. All in all, this one works just fine.